at Cinejoy as part of Cinequest. I'm Katie Bignell, and today I'm going to be talking to, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves. So first of all, we have
Oliver Pearn. I'm the director and writer of On the Line.
I'm Nicola Quilter. I'm the producer of On the Line.
I'm Victoria Lucie, and I play Agnes in On the Line.
So, I mean, what I'm keen to know is, how did this script come to you? Did it come as a full script? Did you get sides? Did you know it was kind of a solo piece? Like, how did you find out about this particular script?
I think initially it was some sides. That's right, isn't it, Ollie? I've got an awful memory.
I can't remember which sides they were.
There was a scene between Agnes and a friend, Betty, and
that's right.
Potentially a scene later down the line that was a bit more intense. I think that's right. I think it was like the color and shade of the two bits for the audition anyway. I applied for it on a casting website just because it's looked really, really interesting. And I think especially we've mentioned lockdown already, I don't think we're ever going to get away from that for a long time, but when you've kind of been at home festering, going, oh, I really want to get back on there and do some acting, and you haven't been able to, seeing something like that was just even more overwhelmingly exciting, because not only would it have been exciting in normal circumstances, but you haven't had the chance to do that, and it was such a challenge to sink your teeth into. So yeah, did the audition with Ollie, really liked it, really liked the sort of the relaxed nature of the audition. There was room to talk about what we felt from the character, both of us. And then I think once I knew I had the part, I got the full script, and then I got even more excited / terrified because it was 77 pages long and I had to learn all those words. But yeah, it was amazing. I mean, it's every actor's dream. It's a challenge. I think that was the best way to describe it, and I feel honoured that I got to do it. It was wonderful, absolutely wonderful.
It reminds me, when you're at school and you get your part in the play, and the first thing you do is go through and highlight every single line. Yeah. And you're just like doing this, like painting the pages. And what was quite enjoyable is from my perspective, watching it as a writer, going, this is compelling, bearing in mind we are in this kind of intimate space for this prolonged period of time, and there is that kind of sense of suspense and tone and urgency, but at the same time, from the actor's perspective, like going, this must have been like really so enjoyable to kind of like have that spotlight on the whole time, but also give that space to breathe. And what I wanted to ask was, Ollie, did you always intend to shoot it as one location, as you did, or was it kind of, because I know obviously we see Agnes kind of in different positions in this one location, but for all intents and purposes it is just pretty much one venue.
I'm going to give Nicola the credit here, but I think it was Nicola who said this, and she said, you've got to make your constraints your biggest strength.
Sorry guys, I've got a bird just flown in my window. Just 2 seconds. It's a beautiful rainbow lorikeet, and there's about 6 of them on the balcony as well. Just 1 sec.
It's like a boiling pot. You can really ratchet up the tension. Films like Saw, films where this has been tried and tested, Locke, all of these films. I just love that you can really get into the character in these films, and the character really drives them. More so than so many other films, and even we talked about you could have a flashback, and you could actually use it in the right way. You could develop the story and show things that you couldn't show, not just exposition, as so many people do use them for, but we could have used them. And I actually think it would, there's arguments for, there's arguments against, but I think it would have broken the tension. I think it would have taken the audience out of that moment. And I didn't want to do that. I mean, the way I shoot, there were only 107 shots, I think, in the whole film. And I love that, that you kind of get drawn in by the introspection, you have these moments to kind of think. I mean, I probably go on to, some of the shots and talk about them later on if I get a chance. But, it suited the way that I wanted to shoot, and the kind of films that inspire me. So I absolutely wanted to do one location film, You know, it had its own challenges. Yes, how do you mix and match it up and not makes it all the same? How do you get the most out of it? And, you know, these are all things, you know, challenges that we came to early on. Me and Jonathan, who came on it so early, who I'd worked with before in previous films. He's a fantastic DOP. And, you know, I lent on him. And, you know, it was great to kind of, you know, start building that connection.
Great. And Nicola, from your perspective, working at script stage as well, were there any sacrifices that you kind of planted the seed about to kind of get it to the strength and the quality that it ended up being? And that could be location or anything.
I always believe, and people say it all the time, script, because once you start shooting, they think they can fix everything on set, in post. It's just not true. So I did pull Oliver through the ringer. I think he was a little bit sick of me by the time. Bad way. It's just, you know, questioning every single thing, because once the decision was made to make it, then I knew that dealing with the first time anything was going to be enough for Ollie to deal with. So the script had to be bulletproof, as bulletproof as we could get it. There are always things that arise, and some of those things came up on set, and we nutted through those as well, just little things. I didn't want to overload on set Vicky to change much, because I started as an actor when I was a kid. I know what it's like when you've learned something. She was dealing with all this technical stuff that she had to do. She did, I mean, you could have used every take that Victoria did anyway. So we had to make sure that if we were going to make a change on set, that it really was important logic-wise to the story. And I thought just dealing with a crew and an actor and making a film was going to be enough. So a one location shot was also technically going to have its challenges, as Ollie said, but it was also going to be much more doable and a nicer way not to be running around the country trying to grab shots, you know, everywhere, and for him to be stressed out of his mind, and for the crew, you know, because it's really important to look after the crew, to be feeling the same way. And if we're going to put an experienced crew around Ollie, as we did, then they had to be looked after. And by putting it in one location, you know, they had a hotel room each, everyone was fed well, nobody had to run around all over the place. Everybody just had to concentrate on the matter at hand, not the logistics of trying to move a crew and cast around the country.
Yeah, and it's so important, and it shows as well, because you can see that there's a continuous high level of attention in the film. And I always say, you know, we watch a lot of films, festival formula, where if there's anything where there's hardly any dialogue, or if it's one location, what it does is it basically elevates everything else. And if that's not strong enough, it really does show those weaknesses, because somebody's gone, oh, well, there's hardly any dialogue in it, so let's make it look pretty. But if that dialogue still doesn't further the story or give us a narrative you know, aspect to follow, it does kind of fall down quite quickly. So you can really tell, like watching this, that everything has been thought about. And I remember I actually watched this when I was at Indianapolis at another film festival, and I remember watching it, and I just thought, I watch a lot of films for work, and you know, not all of them are good, so I kind of, you know, but I have to watch them because I want to give feedback, and I want to kind of tell someone, like, I've understood their film but perhaps hasn't quite hit the mark, or we can't do anything. And this excuse me, this kept me gripped, which it rarely does with a monologue film, essentially. Like, I know there's obviously kind of duologue aspects to it, but when it is one location, one character, one visual dialogue that we're seeing, it's so rare for a film to really capture you and hold you there. And I think that's down to not only just the, you know, the script and the performances, but the production design, the vocal mixing of the other people's phone conversations. It's this very intricate web, which, if anything, it makes it harder to contain when it is kind of limited. Because you could, I mean, I agree, Oliver, you could have flashbacks, and I've got a real bugbear about them, because I kind of feel, if it's the same with fades, I always think as soon as you have a fade or a flashback, you basically hit reset on pace, and you have to bring people back up to it. So, you know, films that kind of keep implementing that, unless it's done well, can really kind of give you another obstacle to overcome. So Victoria, I want to come to you, just talking about like this idea of one location and kind of like having that intimate aspect to the crew. Have you done anything like this before, or how is this so vastly different from perhaps what you've done previously, kind of shooting wise?
Yeah, it's definitely the most, I'd say in the nicest way, you're very vulnerable. It's just you the whole time. I want to shout out definitely to John, the DOP, because it's so pretty, but also the audio design. When I watched it with my partner, and we were just sat there going, God, that's good. Because watching it with a fresh pair of eyes and with someone who has absolutely no idea, has no expectation, nothing. He watched it and he was like, yeah, the kudos to the beautiful lighting, beautiful cameramanship, but also the sound design, because I think it really relies on that. Those are things that, like you say, if you're not changing your location or doing big explosions or whatever it is you're doing, all the other things are magnified, and you do need all the strengths in other places, like you've all said already. So yeah, it was definitely new. I think on the audition or on the casting, Ollie had specifically said we'd need someone who's used to learning a lot of dialogue and not being able to start again and just used to theatre. So I could absolutely see it as well when you see adaptations of certain plays. Again, they seem, when they're put on film, more intimate. They're that kind of, like The Father, Anthony Hopkins. And I felt like this had that kind of quality. You could plonk it on a stage and you'd be just as invested. So yeah, I think it was very, very different. Had similarities from other jobs I've done before, but I think I'd never felt, so sort of vulnerable, but also I've really got to do a good job or else it's going to be a bit embarrassing, isn't it? So the pressure was on, but in a good way. And it was a lovely, lovely team. I had an amazing time. I almost wish we were shooting for longer, but we might all collapse if we did that.
It's rare that you hear that.
What was it? 5? No.
5.5?
5.5
yeah,
days.
5.5. I think we spent the first half morning, setting it up as well. So I think actual time shooting it was 5, but we were there for 6. So
wow.
Yeah.
And I mean,
oh, sorry.
Well, no, go ahead, Victoria. Go.
I remember, Ollie, I know wants to talk about shots later, but some of the obviously the shot lengths were very, very long, and again, the pressure of that, but also the sort of.
Was there one in particular?
Oh yes,
oh, go on, please talk about it.
I don't know what I'm allowed to say and what I'm not, but there's this incredibly
absolutely go for it.
There's this incredibly ambitious shot, and I remember thinking, oh my gosh, okay, it's 10 minutes, 10 minutes long. It's a long, yeah.
10 pages, yeah.
10 pages long,
yeah.
And it's this beautiful tracking dolly shot, and it's so initially you can't really tell it's happening, and you can just see it getting slower, closer and closer and closer. And the amount hanging on that, if I mess up a line, we have to start again. If the dolly goes over a bump, we have to start again. If we get an airplane overhead, we have to start again. If someone talking to me in the ear says the wrong thing and we get confused, we've got to start again. It was just like the sort of way we were all sort of holding our breath, hoping it would pay off. And I think it wasn't that many, and we got it. And that moment where we could all deflate that we'd done it. It was such a cute, sort of beautiful thing for camaraderie, and everyone just wanted it to look and sound amazing. That it was so worth it. But yeah, ambitious. Let's say as a whole, ambitious. Get on you, Ollie. Get on you, Nicola. Go for it.
Is that the one you meant?
Yes, exactly the one I meant.
So I think at this point, you really have to shout out to the crew, because Simon Battender, who's a gaffer I've worked with many, many, many times, he's in there pushing the dolly, and he didn't have any assistants. Everyone was a one horse. There's no real, there's a little bit there. There's a little bit of flexibility, but everybody's getting in. And if Simon had a cramp, somebody else would have jumped in, or I would have jumped in. It's just that it was a tiny, tiny team. Everybody worked their asses off, and it was a very happy crew. And I think you can't ask for more than that in this kind of situation, to have everybody be wonderful, everybody be great at what they're doing, and everyone pull together like a family.
Yeah, we had all the actors for this one shot. So we had, you know, everybody who was reading, you know, another part, you know, they'd be reading one of, because there were 6 or 7 voices in this one take. So, you know, we had someone in the Doctor Who TARDIS outside, someone in the RAC hut, someone, you know, down the road, whatever. And, you know, everybody was on this call. And, you know, all the different calls, and, you know, it was this one moment, and, you know, we all had to, you know, really kind of have a single mind and just go for it. And we just kept going for it. We just went for it and went for it. And
That's what you call hive mind.
Yeah.
And I mean, I do want to kind of focus in, because obviously, you know, we've just talked about how it was quite an intimate team and everything else. But I want to talk about the shoot days, like the actual kind of logistics of it. So with it being a solo performance, did you have time to rehearse in the space? Not at all.
The switchboard side of things, I remember day one sitting there and going, oh my God. And because I'd not seen it yet. And I thought, okay, cool. And we had like a little practice, and this is how we do it. And this is how we're going to do it for the whole film. So this means when you ring someone, you've got this bit, when you do this bit, you know. But yeah, by the end, by a couple of days in, thrown in the deep end, it kind of became, it was almost like choreography. You just kind of like, right, at the beginning of each take, we got into a real rhythm. I feel like that I'd go, okay, who's ringing in this one? What scene are we on for one? I just need to double check. And then who's calling? Okay, and then they're going to not do that. And then we're going to go there. And you just kind of did a little sort of pattern check. And then we went for it. It did make it made you very not, what's the right word? Not precious about your performance in that way, because it was sort of, great, move on. If Ollie's happy, if Nicola's happy, if the crew's happy, great, we do the next one. And I kind of like that way of working, because I think usually, instinctually, the first couple of takes are always the best anyway, because you're just going with your gut. And I think you can spend a lot of time on nuances, whereas it was just so raw and so like, great, next, we've got 5 days, come on. You know, it was wonderful for that reason. I think, well, it works for I work that way. I really like just, tell me what to do. I'll do it best I can and we'll move on. Yeah, which kept the momentum going, which was really, really cool.
Yeah, I mean, it is quite kind of, like you say, it's choreographed. It's quite kind of, that movement is quite easy and addictive to watch, because, you know, you do it with such conviction, but also it's almost part of the memory, like the muscle memory that we're seeing of your character. Because obviously we're hearing the kind of voices from the other end, and that's what our focus is on. And with the kind of it being a solo shoot, obviously you've just mentioned there about having to have a little bit of a reminder of like who's on the call and what's happening and so on. So and in fact you can all kind of answer this. What, I presume it wasn't shot in chronological order. And how kind of mostly. Oh, okay.
Ollie was very kind. I was like, first question, are we shooting it in order, please?
Fantastic thing was, like,
tell me more.
So I could, you know, I could edit it in my head. I was spoiled. I was so spoiled, you know. We shot it chronologically because it made every sense to, in terms of, if you set up the light, there were 3 lighting setups. You know, we had the morning, well, kind of lunchtimey, afternoon, and then night. So you had that kind of progression, but it's very slow, it's very gradual. And it made sense because we pre-lit everything so that we could save time. But we did have to set it up and start again each morning. But it was relatively, you know, we'd kind of got it set up so we could get going quite quickly each day. But yeah, it just made every sense to, I think, in terms of, and performance wise, you know, why not shoot it in there chronologically, because we could. I mean, it's always something that I think your average audience member doesn't necessarily kind of bear in mind when it comes to shooting a script. They just kind of presume, well, you know, they must have done it in chronological order because that's how I'm viewing it. But I always think it's interesting, especially with something quite intimate and quite intricate like this. And in fact, you mentioned about no continuity kind of supervisors. Victoria, you just seem to be your own continuity supervisor for the switchboard, which is great. But what I also wanted to know was
were those the other voices on the other end of the phone? You mentioned that they were kind of calling in stuff. Were they recorded live on the same day, or were they kind of done in post?
Yeah, they were recorded. So we had actors rather than some dry AD reading in all day.
Yeah.
We did, we got a very versatile, experienced readers, and Joanna, who plays Martha, and some of these, key roles there and then, so we could catch it. And it's great going through ADR, and we did have to do it because there's so many voices. There's just too many. We couldn't have that all the actors there. But it really kind of gives, Vicky's there, but it's an inanimate object in front of you, and you're trying to act with it the best you can, but you're reacting to all this amazing emotion that's being fed down the line to you. And I really pushed for it, because I know that we could have done it other ways, and that was always on the top. But I always wanted to do this. I was very firm in my mind that, I wanted to get as many actors cast there as I could. It's
also not easy because, Ollie, then we had to house them all.
Yeah.
I
know.
So we weren't in London, we were on this, we haven't got to that yet, but this tiny little place, and, it added a huge expense to the cost, having them all there, paying them all, for their rate for the week, and having them in a hotel, feeding them, that was a major cost, really.
I was quite grateful that it was, like, from my point of view, I guess I was really grateful that they were there, because it just gave me a little bit more to bounce off of, and we could have a play and stuff. But I totally agree. I genuinely, when I went for the job, I didn't expect that. I genuinely did. I thought I would be talking to maybe Siri or something. Like, I just thought maybe someone reading down the room. You don't know, do you? And it was quite a nice surprise to know that I'd have people to bounce off of.
No, definitely. I mean, so tell me about where you shot then. So where was it shot? Okay, let me for a kind of average person watching the film, is it shot where it was set?
No.
I mean, half. It's the only working switchboard room in the country, so. But no, it's not. It's a completely wrong location.
Yeah. So where was it shot? So where is this last working switchboard? So it's shot in Avencroft Museum, Birmingham, which is actually only 20 minutes from my parents' house. So which was great, because I went and scoped it out very early on in the writing process. And I went there a couple of times, actually, just to kind of, when you're just in a location, you just get ideas. It just works, especially when I was thinking about camera and stuff. I wrote that into it, although I didn't overwrite it, but I at least for me, in my head, I had an idea for it, and I kind of knew what would work in terms of the beats, and the moments when she's up, we go handheld, and we get some movement like that, so it doesn't all become the same. And it's the only working switchboard room in the country. And Steve Cashmore, the switchboard expert we took on, we got so much great information from him. We didn't quite know what to do with all of it. And we really did, we did really kind of build that into, as much as we could into the script, and we tried to follow it. And every sound design piece that you hear in the script is as an actual genuine sound from the switchboard room, and actually in the score as well. So Matthew Collins incorporated it into his score, so we do try and keep it, it's its own character. I like to think of the switchboard room, it's got its own beating heart, and and that's why it had to be at the switchboard room in Birmingham, and a real working one. And we'd call in from another exchange they had, actually, sometimes, because that's the only way we could make it ring. So we'd be texting on our phone going, so someone make this call now into our exchange. So we'd be having and and that works so well. And it's actually set in Alderney, which is one of the Channel Islands between the UK and France. I love this idea of like mixing up technology, that you're having to text someone to get them to call this old-fashioned.
That's right.
I love it.
And there wasn't very good phone signal there either. So on top of this, probably the old-fashioned switchboard worked better than the phones most of the time, actually. Yeah.
Oh, I just have visions of everyone walking around with like old school rotary phones just to kind of like get hold of each other. This, I mean, just hearing you all talk about it from your different perspectives, it just sounds like such a really fun, obviously hardworking, really focused, but just like a really kind of camaraderie kind of based location. So what's the one memory for you all individually that you always think of from that moment? And it doesn't have to be about a particular scene or a budget thing or anything, but like, what's the one memory that you always kind of think of when you think back to that shoot?
There was just moments where everyone was reading the script outside and it was sunny. It was freezing cold, but it was sunny. And I think also not just away from the film set, we had dinners at this fantastic pub every night together, and it was beautiful food, and everyone was, pulling in together. And, obviously we didn't have the massive budget to buy everybody loads of wine and things like that. So everybody got their own, had a beautiful plate of food on the budget, but if they wanted more than a certain amount of something, then they had to buy it themselves, and everybody was buying bottles of wine and sharing it with everybody. So that's away from the place. I do remember Ollie and I standing behind the counter and shouting out random emotions for poor Vicky, so that we had we had cut to if something didn't work. That was pretty funny. Which, if we'd filmed us, was probably a sort of a comedy in itself behind the camera a couple of times. What about you, Ollie?
So for me, it was using that, switchboard machine and, trying to work it out. I remember it is that moment when me and Vicky, first, we did our introduction, we finally met each other in person we sat down with the switchboard machine and we said, okay, so how the hell are we going to work it? And we tried a few things and we went for a take and we're like, yeah, it kind of getting there, but maybe, and then Vicky just kind of magically got it, and I was like, okay, I think I've got a film.
Because also the thing is that it does take, there's a special kind of a magic that you can't plan for. You can plan for everything and then something will go wrong. That's the baseline. You plan everything and then something will still go wrong. But if you've planned everything else, the thing that goes wrong, you can then deal with because you've done everything else. But in this particular film, it felt like this kind of magical, and I say this truthfully, it's one of those magical things when it all comes together. Everybody got on with everybody. It was, even down to sound, having enough radio mics and effortlessly, because he's, a very experienced sound guy. And it just, I just feel like you can't plan that, because you could have all of this go right and someone's an asshole on set, and you just can't stop that. That you can't plan for that. You can insulate a little bit by using people you've used before and people but it was really quite a special shoot, I think.
Yeah, you can so tell. How about you, Victoria? Any memories that kind of spring to mind?
I mean, the one where you were shouting different emotions, I'd forgotten about that, and now I've remembered. It was so funny. We finished the scene, but no one was calling cuts. I was like, okay, I'll just hang out here. And then I was like, and now you're really happy about this? I was like, okay. And then I was laughing, and she's like, and now you're really sad about this. I was like, oh. And we just went through loads. Forgot about that. And I've just remembered another one. We were trying to see if we could make it look like I could sweat. Do you remember this? And Esther, bless her heart, she's a legend, did the Amazing Beehive, all the time in the world for her. But she came over and she's like, right, I've got some fake, we'll give it a go. And they put the sweat on my forehead. And we've just got this video of it going, come on, move down, come on. And it was slowly going, I'm like, we're not using this, right? It was gross. So yeah, that was funny. But in general, it was more like we were so on it, had to get it done. It was such a challenge. And you're so right. I have lovely memories of being in the sun, talking to all the other actors, going to the pub, hanging out with everyone, getting to know everyone. The last night was amazing because everyone got to like chat and just say goodbye, and that was really great. But you're right. I think we were all there for the same reason, and maybe that's why no one was unpleasant. I think maybe we all wanted it to be successful. We all wanted it to be a beautiful film, and we're all there because we felt like we had to be there, because we had to be involved. And I think that's the difference. I think we took it because we really, really wanted it to do well. So when everyone feels that way and everyone's mucking in because it's a passion project, then hopefully everyone will be lovely and it will be an easy process, which it was.
Definitely. So I want to talk a little bit about sound and the music, because obviously, as we've mentioned throughout this kind of discussion, when you don't have a lot of different locations, you need to kind of invent that texture and kind of give that impetus and that kind of tone and pace and energy in a really still environment. So the very nature of, somebody being a switchboard operator, it's all audio driven, you're not necessarily seeing stuff. So talk me through the process you had with your sound design and your composer, and if there are any things that you were adamant that you wanted to include from the beginning before you even started shooting.
I didn't have so much in place before I started shooting, although I did actually have the sound designer on board, so I did have Christian on board, but Daniel got everything live, and it was fantastic. It was clean, and we didn't have to do that much work to kind of get it to where we wanted to be. I think that's partly because someone was here, the other actor was there, the other actor was there, so we could separate them in most cases, so we could get really good sound audio, and in terms of the sound design, yes, I had an idea of scenes that were going to work, and I can remember there was one scene, I think there's a car moving up a hill or something. I go, no, keep it going, but it's part of a long shot, and I'm kind of running it in my head, and I'm not, and we had oh my gosh, this is a great moment when Sally's doing in the cars, and she's going,
oh, that's hilarious. She was reading, but she was actually going, she's doing the car noises on set.
And Vicky kept a set place, and no one else could.
Kissing myself laughing.
Oh my gosh. And so I had kind of ideas of how things were. Okay, yeah, but that was actually in there right until the last. That was one of the last things we took out because I loved it so much, and it was also one of the hardest things to get right. So we had all the elements in, and we still had that car in it, and yes, so much. Definitely the environment it's in as well. It's the hut, it's the weather. You're exposed to all the elements coming in around you, and and the score is a new age score, and I always wanted a new age score that kind of represents the machinery of the room, and so I was listening to Ben Frost, I was listening to Hildur Gunton, I was listening to all of these Icelandic composers, and Matthew Collins had worked with Ben Frost. He'd exhibited at Burning Man, Icelandic festivals, and he was exactly the sound I wanted. And we had the Edinburgh connection as well, because I used to live there. So we got on really well. And also Alexander Joseph, who's done the end credits, the outro for us, the end credit roll. He's done a fantastic piano piece, which kind of, it kind of transcends us at the end of this film, I think, as well.
No, definitely. I mean, it's something that it just gels perfectly, because you don't want anything too obtuse, because obviously you have a period film and you don't want to be too detracting away from that, but at the same time you want to kind of really pay ode to the environment that you're in. And I think there was something quite there's something that really drops you in that moment. And also I always talk about the end of films, especially with features, kind of it's the space where you're allowing an audience to breathe, to decompress from what they've just watched, And sometimes films can really spoil that moment because they then just blast a song at you, which is, perhaps, a pop song or a well-known song or has lyrics. Whereas actually it's quite nice because all the way through this is you are kind of lilted along with the narrative. And it's so crucial to have that music just right. Because often we see films that have been cut to a certain song because they're paid for the rights to it and they just really like the song, but it might not totally be the right choice for that film. And it can be really, really jolting. It can actually kind of take you out of it. But that kind of end credit roll piano music is really beautiful. It's kind of really subtle and just kind of, it does, like you say, just kind of takes you on the rest of that journey to the end when it's finished. So I wanted to ask you, did you always have the film festival circuit in mind?
If something's a hit on the festival circuit, we like to believe as filmmakers, people will hear about it. They do, but, I think the belief is there. And ultimately, it's a calling card. You want to come out with another feature again soon. So, and building up festivals, and doing the run once shows everybody that you can do it again, hopefully. But we haven't done it yet, so
this is just the beginning. It's just the beginning. It's the first stop. It's a very long journey. But I mean, I will say, like, as a festival strategist and also as your festival strategist for this film, a festival like Cinequest is a really, really good springboard because it's known in the industry. It has a really good press attendance and it does exactly what you kind of want, which is to celebrate film. And any film festival, worth their salt, they're curating out so many hundreds and thousands of submissions. And it's even harder with a feature because there's so fewer programming slots available. So when a festival is considering a piece of content, whether it be short or feature, they've really got to kind of drill down and go, I like this film. Will my audience engage with this? Is this something that I could get bums on seats, whether it's a 1 p.m. matinee on a Sunday or it's a 7 p.m. slot on a Friday? So I think, this for me, it is a really good festival film when it comes to a feature, because it's something that I think if you just put into a theatrical distribution by itself, it might kind of get overlooked. Whereas actually it takes a festival to go, this is the good one. Like, come and watch this. Like, we've curated this because we really, really want to share it with you. And I'm excited about where it's going to go next, because this is a really stellar start. It is a really, really kind of like just a fantastic start of the festival journey with this film. So I have one last final question for all of you, because as we mentioned before we started recording, we could talk about this forever. But my last question for you all is, what do you want people to feel after seeing the film?
Love, loss, and hope. It's this hopeful, I mean, it's a taut thriller, so I don't want to scare people, but it's hope.
I think camaraderie and hope, like people to, and also for filmmakers, aside from the audience, the filmmakers who'll be in the audience, to feel like they can do this and that. There is a changing of the guard as far as bullying and all those sorts of things. And if you work as a team and you respect each other, and if you really honor everyone's creativity on a shoot and the process, then the process will carry you as well. And I feel like some of that is on screen in this film, hugely.
I think it's just human connection, isn't it? At the end of the day, we are both in the film, it's all about connection, isolation, helping your fellow man because you can. When people are in need, at the end of the day, most of us want to do something about it. And I think that's very uplifting. And from a cast and crew point of view, like you say, it's human. We all met each other. We didn't know any of each other when we started. 5 days later, we knew each other really, really well, and we've made this thing that's hopefully it lasts forever. Film lasts forever. That's what's so amazing about it. But hopefully, lots of other people will go and see it and feel that human connection as well.
Definitely. Well, I really hope that everyone has enjoyed watching the film and tells all of their other fellow film lovers to come and see it, and to keep an eye out for it. Is there anywhere that people can go to keep an eye on any upcoming festival selections, Oliver?
Yeah, so I have a website, or the film has a website, www.ontheline.film. We also on Instagram, ontheline_film.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, all of you, being across 3 different time zones, talking about human connectivity. This is the epitome of it. And it's been wonderful talking to all of you about your experiences, but also just how you brought this film into the world. So thank you so much, Oliver, Nicola, and Victoria. Thank you and congratulations.
Thank you.
you.